My name is Christy Busby, and you are about to listen to the next episode of my podcast called F.A.T.E. From Atheism to Enlightenment. So come on in, join me. We're going to talk about it all from atheism to enlightenment. Alrighty, guys, here we go. Get ready and welcome to your fate. Welcome, everyone, to the next episode of Fate. How's everybody doing out there? On today's show, we are doing something different. I have a gentleman who goes by Citizen D here with me today. He claims he's a former crop circle maker and he has a story to tell. We are discussing the conspiracy theories behind the crop circle phenomenon. Citizen D will be here with me, audio only, guys. We will get into that as well. Citizen D, welcome to your fate, my friend. How you doing today?
Oh, thanks so much. That's a great one. That's a good intro. You saved me some time.
Well, I'm interested. All right, full disclosure from my end. I'll tell you everything I know about the crop circle phenomenon. I had a woman on a few weeks ago I interviewed. She actually did a documentary on the crop circle phenomenon, but she did a documentary called What on Earth. She was over in the UK. She was very involved in the crop circle phenomenon, very open to the alien aspect of it, and did a deep dive into what the phenomenon was, did a lot of research, and what she told me was this. She said everything was great, and then she said hoaxers came on deck as soon as this crop circle phenomenon started happening, and kind of all these little different groups started imitating what was happening, but in a lesser way, in a less dramatic way, maybe not as uh, elaborate as the main crop circles that were like 2-foot ball fields in length, and like were these like geometrical shapes that were just like very hard to replicate in the amount of time you would have to do that. So anyways, I just want to let you know that's where I'm at with crop circles. I personally think that the aliens were trying to do something to alert us to something, but I'm dying to hear your story and what you have to tell us, being that you were somebody that made crop circles. I guess my
hmm
question is, how did you get into making crop circles? Who recruited you, and how did we get here? How did we get here, Dee?
Well, firstly, I wasn't recruited.
Oh,
Yeah, nobody recruited me.
okay.
My interest stems from my interest in ufology, which I've had as a child. You know, I've had a deep-seated interest in the paranormal since I was a child, and especially ufology. And what we had in the early days, when you used to get like the Bufora magazines coming out once every 6 months, and you had the MUFON magazines, and you had the literature was much sort of the world was much simpler then. We had no internet, so all we had was like the periodicals, the monthly, the 6 monthly magazines coming from the like Bufora and MUFON. And we were getting UFO casebooks every year, which would like give us details of like old, classic cases like Kelly Hopkinsville and Gulf Breeze, all the like the classic literature. But we started to see pictures of crop circles, and they were literally single circles that had been pressed into the wheat, and they looked exactly like birthed, parked flying saucers. That's what they looked like. The crop had been crushed, and their precedent was the 70s Australian tully nests, which also looked like birthed flying saucers, but they were done in grass. But because over here they were done in crop, the crop was higher, so they were much more pronounced. And everyone was saying, look, this is evidence that flying saucers have landed. But then the crop circles started to become more complicated, and they turned from like single circles, and then you had like corridors and forks and door keys coming off them. Now, I contend to your other guest, what I'd say to your other guest is those first crop circles did look like birthed flying saucers, but as soon as they turned into elaborate patterns, unfortunately, the connection between UFOs and crop circles had been so ingrained into the public psyche by that point that they turned not from birthed flying saucers, they then turned into this thing of, well, they must be messages from our galactic space brothers. There was this very clunky transition, which has never been explained, which many of the researchers gloss over. And it's a very, very important distinctive point, because we contend that those early single circles, many of those, Christy, they're unexplained. We don't know how they got there. The crop was bent up, a few inches or a foot. You can't do that with a board. But we contend when you started to see the pictures, that was actually a different phenomenon altogether. And my interest was piqued by, because I thought the same as you. I went in thinking it was Gaia or E.T. or I didn't know what it was. I thought it was military testing. We were told it was all these different things. And I held the hoaxes, as you call them, in the same contempt that a lot of your listeners will hold me today. I really was really annoyed when I found out that people were making them. But then I started to hear about reports of like synchronicities and like dream-driven events and UAPs being seen. There was time shifts happening while the makers were making them. They felt that they were compelled to make them, like Roy Neary in Close Encounters with the mashed potatoes. They were pulled to the area, and they were making in Neolithic sites that were very, very steeped in ancient Wiccan and pagan history, like Stonehenge and Avebury, etc. And they're very, very powerful areas here. And I just thought, well, I want to look into this a bit deeper and see what's going on. So that's where I became involved. Nobody recruited me. I was just interested in the phenomenon, and I just wanted to find out more about what was going on.
So how did you get involved? Because I listened a little bit about what your story is, and you were working with other people doing this type of
Yeah,
obstacle.
you're right. There's this like there's like this narrative that we're some sort of clandestine society. You're not. How I got involved was, as I said, I was very annoyed when I found out that people were making them. And if any of your listeners wants to believe that some aren't man-made or a lot aren't man-made, what I'd say to you is this: don't look at this as hoaxes. Okay, we feel compelled to do this, and if you want to believe that crop circles are made by ET or whatever you want to think, don't dismiss the hoaxed crop circles, because there's something very strange going on with those as well. Now, I became involved because I was overheard saying that I thought that they were very powerful sigils, and they were placed in these ancient, really important landscapes. And a team heard me down the pub, and they said, look, there's a crop circle that we made last night. It's not finished, because a lot of them aren't finished in one night, and they're in out of the way areas, so you won't spot them. And they said, would you like to come out and just do it with us, because we need to finish this circle off? And nothing odd happened. So I thought, oh, this is just a load of bull crap. They're just hoaxes. It's just a load of ego. They're just BSing everybody. And as we were making the circles, we saw a proliferation of UAPs when we finished the circle, and the UAPs disappeared when we finished the second that we finished the circle. All these UAPs appeared, and they were tiny. They were like, I thought it was camera flashes from Polaroids. They were like at waist level, and they were tiny, and they like surrounded the circle we just made. And the team leaders said, oh, we get that a lot. That's just like a little round of applause and to tell us that it's finished. And that's when I thought, geez, what is happening? and that's where my interest was stemmed.
When you say people were pulled to do this, or that you were, you know, clandestine to do this, what are you saying, that there were people that were chosen that couldn't identify
No.
what drew them there, or what are you
Yeah,
saying?
there is that. I mean, there's nothing. We're not channeled, and we're not like the anointed ones or chosen people. We just it just seemed to be that people that had a pre-existing interest in the paranormal seemed to be compelled and drawn to the area to do this, and they didn't necessarily know why. Um, but there was no sort of conscious effort of I will become a circle maker. You just get drawn into it. And the reason why I got drawn into it is because I'd heard all of these reports about strange stuff, and I wanted to see if it was true. And as I said, I can see why your listeners would help me in contempt, because I did. And when I found out that people were involved, I thought, well, come on, the mystery is deep enough as it is. We don't need all these idiots coming in and adding to it, you know. But there is just something else at play. That's what our contention is, and we're not looking to pull the wool over people's eyes or deceive people. A lot of crop circles are made, and we don't know the relevance to them until the internet tells us how important they are. Like, you think it's just some random pattern, and then you find out later that it was a portent for a natural catastrophe. When you're making them, you don't know. You get these ideas and you jot them down, and then afterwards you go, well, we couldn't possibly have known that that date in that field could have had this significance. So we feel like we're being played in a way. There's this contention, there's a narrative that says, it's a game of chess, but we're not playing it, we're the pieces. We just think there's something else going on behind everything.
Okay, so let's walk through this. You decide, who decides what you're going to, what shape that your crop circle is going to take on. Who would decide that? Would you guys just go up there and it would organically happen? Was there a meeting beforehand and you guys, this is the shape that we're going to be trying to make in this field, and like how would this come about, really?
Yes, both of those things. Sometimes you'd go out on the fly and you go, right, let's just not have anything written down and let's just see what happens. And because a lot of the people have made lots and lots and lots of crop circles, they've all got their own Banksy tropes and their own like tags in their own things they're specialising in. Like, one guy's good at spikes, another guy's good at stars, another guy's good at crescents. So sometimes we would go out on the fly with nothing on paper. But other times, yeah, you'd have a meet up in, somebody's houseboat or in somebody's house beforehand. And what you've got to remember is that the crop circle season is only really from May till September, because the early crop is in that horrible, yucky, yellow granola stuff. The good stuff doesn't start to become ready until sort of June, July. That's the wheat and the barley. So the crop circle making teams have got between September and sort of April, they've got all those months to plan and decide what they're going to do when they actually get in there. It's quite a military thing, if you pardon the pun. So if it's a planned design, yeah. If we've got a 5-man team, every person there is going to know what they're going to be doing. And if it's like a newbie, like I was when I started, they're the stompers, they're the foot soldiers, they're the people that have just, you just say, well, you're shading in that bit. We're not going to give you anything complicated because you're new,
That's so interesting. Okay, so there was just a resurgence of crop circles. I saw like randomly in the news. I was just listening to something, and all of a sudden on the news it popped up that this, in July, there was another big crop circle formation. Are you saying that one was as well man made? Are they all man made?
Look, I'm prepared at I've been researching ufology and I've been researching crop circles for many, many, many years. Like this, I think we're into my 30th year now. I don't want to burst your bubble, I don't want to. My view is this: you've got to make your own journey. I'm not going to I'm not going to be the man that says I'm going to ruin your journey. Just go on your own journey, okay? My contention is that I'm prepared to have my mind changed at any point, but for the past 20 years, I'm at the point where I'm at now, where I look at a formation and think, I can see, having been in the fields, how that would have been done, okay? But by all means, if your listeners want to think that it's any element aren't man-made, just go for it and just go on your own journey and find out. What I'm saying to you is that don't don't rule out what you say. See, sometimes you'll look at how the research is distinguished. It'll say, look, that's a terrible crop circle. It's wonky. The lines are off. It's really badly done. Okay. And so that means that all man-made efforts must be bad. What they don't take into account is this. If you're a rock and roll band, all right, and you're really, really bad, okay, you can rehearse for 6 months in Auntie's basement and you can be as bad as you like, and you do your first gig, come out of the basement, do your first gig when you're ready. Crop circle teams don't have that luxury. So a new team going out will be rehearsing in the open air. And that's Auntie's basement. You know, they're rehearsing in the open air. They're going to make terrible crop circles. They're going to be awful. But as they get better and better and better at it, those same people that the believers are laughing at are the same people that will be making crop circles in 2 years' time that they are going to think couldn't be man-made because they just got better and better at it. And that's an angle that the researchers really gloss over. They say, well, it must be man-made because it's terrible. Yeah, it's terrible because it's a new team.
How long have you said you've been doing this for 30 years now?
No, I stopped doing it about 10 years ago, but
You
it took
stopped.
me, you see, for the first 20 years, also for the first decade and a bit, I was just an interested observer, you know, and I used to look at the Crop Circle Connector website every year and think, do you know, I'd love to go down to Wiltshire and just see some crop circles. And I didn't realise how close Wiltshire was to where I lived. And then there was like 10 crop circles in the fields at that point. And I thought, okay, I'm going to go and see all 10. And the thing was, I knew 2 of those were man-made because the reports had said, you know, they knew they were man-made for whatever reason. So I said, well, I'm going to do a trip to the fields to see 10, but I won't see those 2 because I'm not interested. So I'll just go and see the other 8. So I was just in the same place as your listeners. I was convinced that there was no way that people could be involved. And I was really disappointed when they were for about 10 minutes. And then I thought, hold on, if these crop circle teams are reporting all these weird things happening, then surely that's kind of even more mysterious than just birthed flying saucers or messages from galactic space brothers. That's where I am with it.
So in my interpretation of what you just said was that even though they were man-made crop circles, you're kind of intimating that they were overseen by alien type interdimensional beings.
We
Some
think
sort of
that this is you're kind of right. What I'm saying is this: where the crop circles are made, like the highest sort of historically, the highest concentration have been in really important sites, like sites that have been celebrated by our ancestors, stone circles that were built 4,000, 6,000 years ago. And we don't know why to this day. We think that there is something inherently important in this land that in this technocratic age that we've got now, we've forgotten about, but our ancestors knew about it. And
Yeah.
uh,
I would say
yeah,
that though they're energetic ley lines. That's why you have a lot of temples where they are in the positions that they are, is that the mother Gaia is an energetic conscious being, whether or not we want to believe it or not. And there are ley lines, energy, strong current areas where they would set up things like Stonehenge or a temple or whatever in ancient times when we were much more spiritually inclined and much more spiritually intelligent, and we're aware of things like that. And I think we were much more interactive with interdimensional beings as well, and we believed in fairies and gnomes and whatever. But that's what I think,
No, you're right, but you're right.
that's what it is.
Yeah,
It's
you're right.
energetic ley lines.
The thing is, what we report. You see, if you speak to the locals that live in Wiltshire, that live around these important areas, they don't bat an eyelid at this stuff. They don't. They just say, well, we've been seeing this stuff for hundreds and hundreds of years. Our grandparents, our great grandparents, but the difference is, Christy, what we call now a UAP, they were calling them sprites or nature spirits or fairy lights. But it's the same thing manifesting based on where we are within our culture and where we are within our evolution. You know, it's, where we now see greys, they were seeing away with the fairies. It's the same thing. Um, this is really important. Even if you are not prepared to believe that man makes crop circles or the really good ones, just bear this in mind. Just the act of a human team placing a symbol in land that's as important as that's a sigil. It doesn't matter how it got there. And there's a lot of people that I've met in crop circles that go, I don't care how it got here. All I feel is the energy. And what they're feeling is the energy of that sigil in that particular place. Now, unfortunately, some people say, well, I had this incredible experience, so that proves to me that it can't be man-made. But what they're missing is it's the power of that image in that field, which has been, revered for thousands of years. And just the act of that image in that field is what is making the power. What's put it there is almost irrelevant, if you see what I mean. It's just the power of that image in that particular field.
Who would come up with your designs? Who would was there what ha, if it is in fact a sigil that has some sort of power within, because even Suzanne Taylor, who did the documentary, said that she spoke to many, many people who would go sit in these crop circles. They would have healings take place.
Mm-hmm.
They would have the most in like impressive meditation sessions where they would like sit with their higher guides and get downloads. They would their equipment wouldn't work. The recording equipment would go bonkers. The electrical equipment wouldn't work within these circles. It was a charged, energetic area after these things would crop up. So, how do you explain stuff like that occurring
Well,
very often
because
in these
because it
circles?
does. Because it does. And I've been into crop circles that I've been at in a team and made, gone in the next morning, and everything that you've explained is happening.
Mm. Hmm. Do you feel like this is sort of modern day magic? When you say sigil, it feels like you're kind of dealing with powerful energies that um, that we are not anymore in touch with. We don't recognize as being real. We don't understand. I mean, I don't know how far down the 3D rabbit hole or that you go in your conspiracy theories, but like I've completely launched myself into another time, like completely different dimension as far as I'm concerned, as far as like my belief systems.
That's cool.
Like I feel like the majority of what we've been told in human history is a lot of lies. I feel like we're much more capable and powerful and magical than we think we are.
Totally agree.
And and that there is a lot more going on in our plane
Yeah.
that we can't see, touch, taste, feel,
Yeah.
that nevertheless exists.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to call this energy or spirits or aliens or whatever, it's all dimensional, it's all energy. Frequency, vibration, and depending on what you're tuning into, that is what you're going to experience in your reality. um that's kind of where I'm at. I absolutely think that we're not the only species in the universe. There's aliens, of course. We're not evolved. We're a very barbaric species that is unevolved and unaware of what our true place is in the universe. And I think through time we will finally get there if we don't blow ourselves up yet again because we're stupid and backwards as a as a species. We're fucking retards as far as I'm concerned. But I do believe that there's aliens. I also believe that there's other dimensions. I also believe in a lot of things that people would think I was crazy for thinking. So I don't know, where are you at in your belief system as
I'm
far as
exactly where
even aliens? Yeah.
I'm exactly where you are.
Yeah.
I'm exactly where you are. But my own concern is that having studied ufology for decades, I call it the UFO problem because I don't think I don't think it's ET. I think it's something far closer to home. I think it's something that's coexisted with us since our inception. I think it might have even been involved in our inception. And it manifests itself based on where we are within our evolution. And I think it's all around us. And I think that if you look at the work of like John Keel, when he says about that little analogy of the little radio where you've got a little needle, and that's where we are with this tiny little needle. We've got infrared to ultraviolet. That's it. But if you were to widen the needle, then you'd be open. That's the pineal gland. That's the third eye. Everything that religion teaches us, we just can't see it. And
Yes.
I'm also into what J. Allen Hynek said, the godfather of ufology. He said, if we had the UFO problem solved right now, if somebody was to write it down and say, this is the solution, we're not advanced enough to even understand it. So
No.
certainly when it comes to your question about design, we'll go and make a crop circle. You see, you write a design down and you think it's yours, Christy, and then you go and make it in the field, and then 2 days later you'll have an argument with another team because they've gone, where did you nick our design from? We were going to put that down tonight, you sods. And we haven't nicked it, and they haven't nicked it off us. So there's a question of, we write it down, we think it's ours, but is it ours? We go to a field and somebody's already made the design you're going to make, or there's loads of instances where you have these synchronicities and dream-driven events, and you go to make the example that I always use is I had a recurring Ubi dream. I was having this out-of-body experience, and had this dream. There was this field with a crop circle in it, and another field with another crop circle in it, and I kept on swooping over this thing in my sort of spiritual body, and I didn't recognise it as anywhere in Wiltshire. And then one day I was driving around by mistake, and I found this. I found where my dream was sort of situating me, and I put a crop circle down. I put one of my designs down, and then I found out the next day that there was another team in the next field making the other design from my dream, and I didn't know about that team, and they didn't know about us. So that's the sort of stuff you've got to look at and say, is this an interconnectional thing where we are talking to each other telepathically through the species field, or is there something else triangulating us? This is what I don't understand, whether we're talking to each other through the collective consciousness, or if there's something else at play.
Well, I mean, there's it seems with all the I read and I absorb all like I swim in this shit. So it feels as if all communication or a lot of it, when you get into interdimensionals, when you get into higher vibrational states or whatever, and there's lots of people that channel other dimensions, other beings, and whatever, and have full on profound, wise conversations. I have some of them on the show that channel interdimensional beings, profoundly wise intelligence, consciousness that exists out there that have the ability to tap into some people on this planet based on some sort of energetic connection. And a lot of times it's telepathic. So, I have no doubts that, telepathy probably plays some sort of role in how you guys are getting your designs and what the connection is there. And I don't know. I To me, when you say UFO problem, I don't know what problem you're talking about. From my perspective, there is no UFO problem. I feel like humans in general should just statistically, it is impossible that we're the only ones here. It's just not possible with the limitless galaxies and ginormous, ever expanding universe with millions and billions of stars and planets that we don't know about, that are so far beyond our ability to even intelligently think about the vastness of what we swim in. It doesn't make any sense that we're the only ones here. So I don't find it a big leap to think that there's aliens. I also don't find it to be a big leap that they would be here monitoring us on a regular basis, since I believe we have absolutely blown ourselves in prior incarnations of this earth, because we're violent, stupid species that can't seem to get evolve past our barbaric, violent ways. So, for instance, I personally think we're going to have full contact with aliens within the next 2 to 3 years, because I don't think they're going to allow us to put a nuclear weapon in our space. I don't think they're going to let that happen. I think it disrupts the energetic field, the consciousness, the ether that exists everywhere, that energetic plasma, if you will, that we swim in, that we don't recognize anymore. Everything is energy. We are all connected. And I think aliens are going to make full contact and to say, hey, dum dums, you need to start understanding who you are, how powerful you are. We're co creating our reality. We manifest. We are telepathically, energetically connected. So it's not a huge leap for me. But I understand why people struggle.
The reason I called it the UFO problem is because I just think that I do think that there's a deception at play, and I think that the true ufologists, like the golden boys, like sort of F.A.T.E, who to me is the most important voice in ufology, talks about the fact that it's a connection with the psyche. There's a connection with the human psyche and with the human consciousness that people do not give enough credit for. Okay, and he contends that what we see as greys aren't that at all. Okay, they manifest in that way, and I said to you before, it's an ancient phenomenon, and it's been with us since our inception. And the reason why I call it a problem is because I think by its very nature it's deceitful, and that's why I call it that, and that's why many ufologists call it that as well.
I mean, there's many conspiracy theories about, I'm sure you're well aware of, like the Anunnaki.
Of
That,
course, yeah.
there's so many of how we really came to be as humans here, that aliens were definitely involved. And but the overall consensus is that alien species were here. They kind of bred us, gave us a little bit of their special sauce, and built a slave race. And I think to some extent they're still here, and we still have a slave race. It's just built around a slave economy. We're very controlled. We're very censored. They don't allow us to have our own thoughts. We're programmed and led to believe things that aren't true.
All right, so
What say you, sir?
right, let me just put that back to you, okay? So we're told that we are these spiritual beings that are capable of anything. We're multidimensional. We can we can do the impossible. As long as we tap into our inner selves, we can do what we like. Is that what you're saying?
Yes,
All right.
that's what I'm saying.
In that case, why can't we flatten wheat by moonlight?
Because our own belief systems,
No.
it's
What?
the
No.
bio.
What I'm saying to you, why do people not believe that humans, in our infinite capacity, can make pretty patterns in the crop? Why can't we do that?
I don't know if everyone believe. I am not. I certainly don't believe. I think man is one of the most creative beings out there. If you can say anything about the human nature, you could say we are super creative, and I don't think there's anything that we can't accomplish.
But they say
Uh,
that we can't make crop circles.
what do you mean? Who's saying you can't? Are you saying that there's people out there that are saying that they were absolutely not man-made at all, none of them, and that they were all had to have been made by some sort of alien species? Is that
No.
the line of
What I'm
thought?
saying
What are
to
you
you is
saying?
this. If you see an elaborate, brilliant crop circle, why can't that have been made by people?
I wouldn't say that it's impossible that they couldn't make.
But
I
people
mean, there's
do
all
say
these.
it's impossible.
It's true because of things like the how elaborate they are, how
That's
huge
not
they are.
that's not a reason.
No, no, I'm
If
just
you've got
saying
if you've got
they're
if you've got a 20
rationalizing
if
that.
you've got a 25-man team that know exactly what they're doing and have been planning it for months, why
I
can't they do an elaborate crop circle over 2 football fields in the space between 10 p.m. and 3 a.m.? Why can't they do it?
I'm certainly not on the camp that you couldn't do it. I'm kind of in the camp of why would you do it?
Well, that's a different question.
I'm in that
That's
camp,
but that
but
is
I'm not in that camp where
that
it
is a
could
different
not be
question.
done.
That's why we're
Yes,
talking today.
yes,
The why is what
the
I'm
why.
talking about, okay? What we are saying is we are compelled, we will put a design down, we think it's ours, and then we find out that that particular pattern in that particular field on that particular date had a relevance that we could not have known about until it comes out on the internet 2 or 3 weeks later. But what I'm saying to you, Christy, is the mystery of crop circles is still all there if you contend that people do make some or all of them.
That's totally fair enough. I think that you should just be more direct about what you're saying. I feel like you say things without saying them.
Like what?
Basically, like there's a lot more mystery to it,
Yes,
and
there
it's
is. There is.
in that instead of saying, I think that we are being directed by energetic species, being, spirit, energy to make these things unbeknownst to us in a very bizarre, magical way.
Yeah,
Is
that's
basically
where I
what you're
am.
saying.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying that we don't necessarily know why a design has gone down. We don't know why we've picked that design. We think it's our idea, and then we find out that there's a direct relevance to that. We're not as clever as we're saying. That's what I'm saying to you. We'll make a design, but we don't know the relevance of it until the internet tells us afterwards, and then we find out that it's matched up with an imminent catastrophe that we couldn't have known about.
So in theory, you could say they're still alien made.
Ah, see, now we're getting to the crux of it. This is exactly what I'm saying to you. What I'm saying to you is,
Then just
yeah, okay,
then
we
just
got
say
there. It took
you,
45 minutes.
but
There,
you gotta get there though.
yeah, yeah.
Like you seem like you're afraid to say it. I'm not fucking afraid to say it. I'll be like, oh, so aliens are tapping into you guys energetically and somehow pulling you in a way to guide you to make these. And although you're saying it's not the alien machine hand, whatever, it's humans doing it, but the execution behind it is alien origins.
It's only alien in that it's foreign to our current understanding. It could be that it's the species field, and it could be that we are tapping into our own collective consciousness, and we are actually in the taking it from the hard drive, if you like. It doesn't mean to say that ET's involved. What we're saying is there is a component to our work that we don't fully understand, so we're not going to make up what it is, okay, which is what some researchers do. We are saying there is something going on and it's alien to our understanding, but it's made the mystery deeper, because the second I found out that all of this weird stuff and the coincidences, especially the coincidences and the synchronicities and the dreams, it's that part of the element that really interests me. And once the crop circle is down, everything that you explained, we've seen the battery malfunctions. I've seen people go into crop circles that we've made and the cameras drain. I've seen people have positive experiences, but they've been in crop circles that have been made by people that I know, or I've been on the team the night before.
You have said that you see, you're calling them UAPs, which I refuse to call anything a UAP. I don't even know why they say UAP.
Yeah, the reason why they say UAP is because we had to change the terminology, because UFO means flying. Okay, they had to change it to UAP as an aerial phenomenon, just in case it was a stationary event, and that's why the narrative changed.
It's still something that's floating in the air, even if it's stationary.
It's not flying though.
It's flying as far as it's elevated or something.
Yes,
it's not
elevation
being
isn't
supported
flight
by,
though,
by
Christy.
anything.
Elevation isn't flight. A weather balloon isn't, yeah. But that's why the terminology changed. I think it was changed for that reason.
Oh,
It
well,
wasn't some, it wasn't some sort of sinister reason. It's just people said,
then
well,
why don't they call things that fly UFOs and make that distinction?
We had to make the distinction because people were saying, I saw a UFO, and it turned out to be a stationary object. So they said, well, it's not a UFO because it's not flying. It was just a bit of admin, really, that happened in the literature in the late 80s.
Semantics, but okay.
Yeah, semantics. Yeah,
semantics. It's all right. So let's do you feel like there is any kind of government cover up going on in conspiracy theory land? Because I was under the impression for a little bit there that these hoaxers that they kind of were a distraction from the excitement, because it was very exciting initially when these crop circles were coming out.
I know, but you're specifically talking about two different things. What you're talking about is the Doug and Dave events from, when the two guys come up and said, we made them all, okay? We've got experienced teams now, okay? And we weren't recruited. We just felt an interest, and then you meet other people that made them, and then you train your teams, and then they go and train their teams. There's no secret agenda here. We're just compelled to do this. There's no conspiracy. The only conspiracy is that people don't want to believe that people are capable of making them. It's not a narrative people want.
So let me ask you this. Your purpose for coming out and getting on podcasts and telling your story is to explain or let people know what?
That you mustn't dismiss what you call a hoaxed circle. And also, for something to be a hoax, there must be a parameter which it is imitating. I need one example of a definite crop circle that has definitely not been made by people, and there's 100% proof. Have you got that circle for me?
No.
No, nobody has. So you can't say something's hoaxed unless you've got a cast iron 100% go-to to compare it against.
So are you saying that absolutely every single crop circle that has ever been made out there from the time they started coming into the global consciousness have all been man-made? There hasn't been any evidence or any circle that was made that was not without a human hand?
I certainly think that the circles that kicked off the phenomena, which were the president was the tally nest, those very early events, The single circles, like the birthed flying saucer things. I'm not saying they're birthed flying saucers. They just looked like birthed flying saucer marks. A lot of those can't be explained. But I think that that's a different phenomenon to the pictures.
So your ultimate goal is just to let people know that the crop circle phenomenon, which is still alive and well, yes. I mean, just this past July, there was more crop circles in the news. So,
Yeah, there was more crop circles on the news, but a lot of those were made by the same teams. So if you've got the same team making six, it doesn't mean to say there's been a resurgence. It means that team just made a few more circles this year.
well, when I mean resurgence, I mean I think lots of crop circles get made probably out there that I never hear about. I'm not hearing about it in the news. It's not coming on my radar. I'm not in that world, so I wouldn't know about every single crop circle that comes into fruition out there. But when it comes up into the news, in my eyes, that means it's bubbled up to mainstream land and
No, it,
people
it,
that.
it, it bubbled up this year because there was a really, really good one in Sutton Vaney. That's
Okay,
it.
got it. All right. Well, I mean, what's your belief system as far as nature of reality? What are we doing here? Do aliens play a role? Energy? Like, where are you at in the world in the spectrum of conspiracy theory of the nature of existence?
I'm very much where you spent 2 minutes on it earlier. I didn't disagree with anything you said. I think that our true potential is suppressed. But the irony is, part of that true potential being suppressed is that people don't believe that people can crush corn into pretty pictures. My contention is that we are much more important. We're much more spiritual. We are much more capable than people give us credit for. And I think that the importance of us placing these sigils on these particular areas where our ancestors were far cleverer, and we've forgotten most of what they know. It's
Yeah.
just we're in a position now where I think we've got problems, and I think that our forebears and our ancestors knew a billion times more than we do now. And I'm with you. I think probably we've been to this point before. I think we
Oh
have. I
yeah.
really do. But I really do agree with you. But I think it's not our place to play. Basically, we're not advanced enough to understand this stuff yet because we're too
Correct.
close-minded, and we're suppressed, and we've got the media,
Yeah.
we've got the X Factor, we've dumbed down, all the stuff that you know already, Christy. Okay.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but as far as the crop circles are going, I'm just saying the reason why I'm doing these podcasts is to let you know. Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. If you see something that you think's a hoaxed crop circle, people are still having magnificent, experiences in those things. There's something else at play. We're getting all these synchronicities and coincidences, and people have magical experiences in them. It's the power of the image that's in the field rather than how it got there, and it is to do with magic. It's like you said, when Jimmy Page was messing about with Aleister Crowley stuff in 1970, in the 70s, no one said, oh well, the spells can't be real because they're cast by humans. They still had the same effect, and that's what my contention is. Obviously what we're doing is benevolent rather than anything bad, we hope. But what we say is there's a mystery going on. There's something else going on where we make these images and then we find out that it had a relevance that we didn't know about and we couldn't have known about.
What kind of relevance are you talking about? Say you do a sigil, and a sigil basically is kind of a ritual. Like what? How would you define sigil?
Well, for a start, a lot of teams that I know, when I first started doing them, I couldn't understand what they're doing, but they were doing incantations before they made the circle. It wasn't
So they're
scripted.
doing ritual. Is that they're doing a ritual practice over these circles? If they're speaking, they're spelling. They're spelling. You're putting that energy, that vibration, that you know, into the etheric
It's the
plane.
intent. It's the intent.
Intention. 100.
The incantation was basically to just sort of make sure that we were there for the right reasons and could we be protected
Hmm.
from being caught and all that sort of stuff. It wasn't scripted, but you're right. It's the intent and the willpower and the belief that goes into the making of the pattern. And you've got to think, you've got
Yes.
15 people there expelling the same energy. They're all there for the same reason. And they're all expelling that same energy. And a lot of the time, they're very spiritual people. It's that that's creating the power. And ultimately, Christy,
Yes.
what I'm saying to you, this, even if you don't want to believe that they're all man-made, you've got to look at this element of it because it just shows you that there's something going on with man-made circles that is not being investigated because people don't want to know that people are involved. But even if you just say, well, we know they make some of them, don't dismiss this. There's something else going on, but it goes against the alien narrative because people don't want to hear it. I was really angry when I found out people make crop circles. I thought I'd wasted 20 years of my life. But when I saw what else was going on with the power of the images and their relevance and their significance, and we didn't know about the significance, that's when I thought, if you're brave enough to just, take that on board, then the mystery is a lot more interesting and a lot deeper than birthed flying saucers.
I mean, certainly there is so much more going on than what we think. We are spiritual, energetic beings that are covered in a meat suit, and that energetic spiritual being doesn't die. It is an awareness. And when it comes to who we are at our core, take our ego out of it, take our bodies, take our personalities off the table, we are an energetic awareness that seems to be eternal. That's what we are.
I totally
And
agree.
I think that this knowingness of being able to take our power back and take control of who we are and understand that we are very much more powerful beings is going to be one of the best things that happens to humanity. And all of these conspiracy theories or whatever you want to say about crop circles, I think is just like one of the many tipping points that we're going to have that's going to start bubbling up in our consciousness that's going to illuminate us to who we really are.
I agree, totally. And what I add to that is that if you take what I'm saying on board, none of what you said changes
No.
because it's still all there. Do you see what I mean? Do you see what I'm getting at here? It's even with humans involved, everything you explained is still all there.
Let me ask you this. Why do you not want your face out there? Why are you not putting your image to your words? What are you afraid of?
Three reasons. Firstly, it's illegal to make crop circles. There's no statute of limitations in this country. If a farmer wants to sue me 10 years on, it's not a criminal offence, but it's a civil action. Okay? It's criminal damage and it's trespass. Secondly, this is a really contentious subject. Okay? And I don't want any trouble in my personal life from some of the people that are going to be going against the honesty that I'm talking about today and the fact that I've got this narrative. Thirdly, it's not about ego. It's the images that are speaking. It's the circles that are speaking. It's not about the artist. And that's why I don't want to be why I choose to remain off camera.
Do your other crop circle maker pals know about you coming out onto your podcast and talking about this
Yeah,
phenomenon
I've done.
in this way?
I did last week. We did a round table, three of us talking to another, talking to a podcast in Australia. Yeah.
And you said that some of these people are quite spiritual.
I think so.
Okay. And then when I'm just trying to understand the why behind you
Yeah.
doing this
So are
still.
we. So are we.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
that's the big question. This is the big question when it comes to Stonehenge or Silbury Hill took 100 years to make, and all of these structures that are around here, people don't ask that question enough, Christy. And we're
Oh,
asking the same question: why?
yeah. Why?
But we're
Now,
saying that of ourselves as well.
So
when we do this.
do you feel like it's something that you have a pull to do that you can't quite understand what is pulling you in this
Yeah,
direction?
yeah. Now you could argue it's because we've got an interest in the paranormal, but where did that interest come from? It's like a rabbit hole. You know, what came first? You know.
Yeah, I mean, and also though, even if you have an interest in the paranormal, it's like I how paranormal is it if you're the ones doing it? Although I guess you're getting this insight from another way telepathically
Yeah.
as far as what you're actually putting down
Mm.
and the power that it has.
I think you've got it. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
interesting. It's interesting, Citizen D or D. It's super interesting your insights. I how how are you wanting people to respond to your information? Are you just putting this out there as a hey guys, just so you know, there's so much more going on out there in your reality that is can't possibly be um, rationalized by mainstream thought, or what's your end goal here? What's your goal?
My end goal is to just for people to understand. Don't diss, human circles. There's more. Don't say, well, that's not a real one. That's a hoaxer. That's not real. That's deception. Because until you can give me a cast iron example of a crop circle that is 100% proved not to be made by people, there's nothing to hoax.
Fair enough. We're coming up in an hour. I want to ask you about. You keep saying that there is um, kind of other synchronicities,
Yeah,
dreams.
yeah.
Can you give me an idea of exactly the magic, the mystical events that are happening around these circles that you can't quite understand?
All right. This
Are
is
you
it.
able?
This I think was going to play into. Yeah. This is. It didn't happen to me, but it happened to it. See, I've been interviewing crop circle makers for my Substack. So, what's encouraging is that some of the people I don't know, but I've had them vouched for because it's a friend of a friend that I've worked with. But a lot of the stories that I'm getting are the same. So I think, well, I can't print that one because that's too similar to that. So it's encouraging that I can only use 1 in 10 of the stories that I get because they're all the same. But one that I got, which I hope illustrates, really illustrate this to you. There was a crop circle maker, and he was in bed, and at midnight he got this overpowering urge to go and make a crop circle. And it wasn't any crop circle. The image was in his head. It was midnight. There's nowhere that he wanted to be less than in a field thrashing on a circle. He couldn't get a team together because it was midnight, obviously. And we start at 10 p.m. and you have all day to prepare. And he said he had to yield to it, and it wasn't like this joyous calling. He said, I had to yield to it in the same way that you have to feed your cat if it's scratching at you for food. I had to do it. It was the only way that it would stop. So he got his kit together. He had to make it by himself, so he had to use tent pegs, to make do, rather than other team members. Anyway, he went to this field. The image in his mind, it had to be this particular pattern, and it had to be in this field. But he went to another field. He thought, well, this field looks like the other one, so I'll do it here. He started to walk into the field to make it. He felt nauseous, sick, terrible, headaches, and it didn't subside until he went, okay, I'll go to the right field. He went to this other field, made this crop circle, exactly the image in his head, exactly the field it should be, and then it was about 3 a.m. by the time he finished it, and it was really exhausting work, and he slept there. And then the next morning, there was a group of 4 girls freaking out in this circle, and he thought, well, I'll just pretend that I've just fallen asleep here, and my boards are, under the brambles. I'll just pretend that I've just got here. And they were freaking out. And he thought, well, it was a good circle, but it wasn't that brilliant. And then he said, what's going on? And it turned out they were Wiccans, Christy.
Oh.
And they said they said, and one of these girls was grappling something around her neck, and it was a necklace, and the necklace was the same design as what my friend, had put in the field. And he said, what's happening? And they said, well, we meditated last night on this locket. We wanted this locket in the field. So we started to supplicate Mother Nature and Gaia. And then Gaia answered and placed this pattern in the field. And my friend started to realise what had gone on. And he said, well, when did you start doing your supplications? And they said midnight, of course, because that's when Gaia is at her most powerful.
I mean, that speaks to me the power of our intentions, our thoughts, energy. I mean, it is pretty mystical and magical for sure that we are all connected in that way. That there's a global consciousness. I certainly can't explain why that happened, but I do believe that everything is energy, frequency, vibration, and I feel like we are much more complicated creatures than we think we are. And I think we are in a new age. We're in the age of Aquarius, and I think things like this are. I personally love this story because I like to highlight these very not supported, not believed instances of us being greater than what we think we are. And I think that's a great, it's a great story. It doesn't scare me, or it doesn't
No, it shouldn't.
make me feel weird or
No.
anything. I I think that makes sense based on a lot of the stuff that I've been reading and listening to.
I've got
and
another
getting
quick
involved.
I've got another quick
Do
one
it.
for you. All right, okay.
Give it. I love
Right,
these.
okay.
Yes.
This is the stuff I'm more interested in than the
Yes.
UAPs. I'm interested in this stuff that can't be measured. Okay. Now, this is
Yeah.
what, when I said to you before, we're not anointed, we're not special, we're not more special than you. We're just compelled to do it, but we think there's something else at play. Now, we had a situation once. There were 6 of us. We met in the pub. We don't get drunk before we make them. That's just a myth. We met in the pub. We knew what we were doing. We were doing a design that was a celebration of Mother Earth. Okay, and the designer had worked on it. It was going in a magnificently important spot, one of the most important spots in Wiltshire. And so there's 6 of us, and we said, right, we know what we're doing. Everything's cool. And then a phone call comes in, and one of the team members goes, oh shit, I've forgotten I'm on another team tonight. Okay, I forgot all about it. I promised myself 3 weeks ago. I promised them I'd go. I'm going to go and make that crap. Sorry guys. Then the bloke next to him, oh shit, I'm on that team. I forgot all about that. We're 2 men down. Okay. Then somebody walks into the pub, and it's somebody one of us knew, and it was a tourist who knew we were makers and said, look, if you guys are short any time, I'd love to come out. So we recruited him. And then we get a phone call from somebody who lives in Birmingham, says, look, I'm down for the night. Do you fancy a pint? No, we need your ass here, okay? So now, and then somebody else says, there's not enough experience on this team. I'm going home. Then we're down again. And long story short, the whole team, in the space of half an hour, the team was completely different to the team that it should have been, okay? And we went out, and it was quite awkward in the UV because we didn't really know. We were all strangers to each other because of like these little manipulations and these, he's gone, he's back, who's this guy? And one of the guys passed around a stick of gum, and it was all very complicated. It was all very awkward because we didn't know each other. And one guy said, he looked out the window and he said, do you know what? If only my mum could see what we're doing, because she's a spirit. She was a spiritualist, and this is right up her alley. And I said, well, you can bring her down. And he went, no, I can't, because she passed away last year. And then I said, my mum passed away last year, and then the whole team. My mum passed away last year. It's like Spartacus, and we realised that everybody in that UV had suffered the same loss of the same parent the year before, and then we realised that we were making. What did I say to you? We were making a crop circle, which was a celebration of Mother Earth.
Yes.
And that's the stuff I'm interested in, Christy, and that's the stuff I want to get across. Where we're going,
Yeah.
what the fuck is happening?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's fascinating. I really do. I mean, I love stories like this. I love the synchronicity. I absolutely am glad that you are able to come onto the show and talk about it. And I hope you reach as many people as you can to enlighten us to the magic that is behind our lives. It is more magical. I say it on this show all the time that our lives are much more magical, mystical, and unexplainable than we think, and that we're distracted by bullshit,
Mm.
and that we are powerful creators, we're energetic beings, and you've definitely lived an interesting life. So are you're out of the crop circle game then now? Is that you said you're retired now?
The only reason I stopped was because the hours in my job changed.
Oh.
It's really mundane. There's no mystical answer to it, Christy. It's just something boring happened. But what's interesting is that when I'm collating these reports, I'm getting the same pull, not to do crop circles again, but I'm getting the same synchronicities in doing this,
Yeah.
in constructing my Substack. I'll meet a random person and then they don't know me, and then the conversation will turn to crop circles within 2 minutes from somewhere else, and you're going, that wasn't supposed to happen. And you think, what happened? Because I wasn't wearing a t-shirt or anything. We were talking about something completely different, a random stranger, and then it turns into crop circles within 2 minutes. And I'm thinking, even my missus is going, well, that was weird. It seems that if you're interested in it, you kind of start attracting it again, even without being in the fields and making them.
100%. I think if you pay attention to spirits or UAPs or synchronicities or your higher self, or you're tapping into the energy around you, the universe is going to speak back to
Yeah,
you.
yeah, yeah, totally.
It's, oh, you're paying attention.
Paying
I'm going to give,
attention.
yes. And I think that's one of the reasons why I do this show, is to get people to start paying attention to the energy that we're all swimming in, that we take for granted, that we have completely tuned out. That
Yeah,
if you tune in to that energy, it's going to communicate with you in the most magical ways. And
yeah,
nothing is a mistake, and synchronicities are real.
exactly. Nothing's a mistake.
And
Yeah,
you're always putting out a vibration, a resonance, and there is a universal law of attraction, and you will attract what you're vibrating at. It's just one of the ways the universe works, in the mysterious ways that it does.
yeah. I'm really interested in the fact that I did a podcast a few months ago, and a really interesting point come up on their side. They said that because I'm interested in crop circles and ufology, that just by talking about it, you're in like the theatre of the macabre, if you see what I mean.
Yeah.
You're in a weird place. But if we weren't talking about crop circles, and you were to make a list of 10 really, really, really weird things that happen to you in your day-to-day life, going shopping or driving around, would that be any different to the list that you make if you're actually in the fields and you're or interested in, or you're sky watching? Would it be any different, or are you just paying more attention to it because you're in an environment which interests you as being paranormal?
I mean, I don't know. I feel like um I feel like everything happens for a reason,
Yeah,
and I feel like nothing's an accident, and I feel a lot of what does show up in your reality is based on what you focus on. What you focus on grows.
yeah,
What you put your attention to will grow. So if you're focusing on something, if you're putting your attention towards something, it's going to manifest it in some way in your reality. Because at the end of the day, I don't think that any of this is real. I think we're in a 3D holographic, energetic VR, best VR set in the world. And I think there's a higher self that is a part of us, and we are in some sort of weird holographic game of sorts, and it's all energy, and nothing is quite solid. I mean, even quantum mechanics will tell you nothing is solid. Not when it comes down to it. We're mostly air. It's energy. We're all energy. So when you start swimming in that theory, all of this stuff to me starts making a lot more sense. Of course, that's happening. Of course, this is happening. But the vast majority of the people on the planet aren't even open to that thread of thought because they're very much programmed to believe something else.
I think it's interesting that, as I said, in the 80s and 90s, I was deep into ufology. I was really, really obsessive about it. I was a bit of an evangelical about it, talking to the wrong people, and I was really obsessed, and everyone thinks you're a nut. And then
Yes.
now, 30 years later, the same people, because I was friends with them, they're still friends, the same people that were calling me a nut 30 years ago and now came back to me and saying, I saw something. And you're going, you're 30 years, I've been in this for 3 decades. And they go, is there something to this? And they would never have said that to me in 1990. The awareness is changing, I think.
Oh, I I agree. I think there's a great awakening happening. I think a lot of people, especially since post-COVID, when people got locked up in their houses without work and distractions, and they started looking around and thinking to themselves, "Huh, this life really doesn't make much sense to me. There's got to be something more." And I think a lot of people started a lot of asking a lot more questions about the nature of reality, about what work is, what our lives are, what are we doing here. I think religion is a whole nother topic, but I think religion is just a man made system in which we are to be subordinate to, that is meant to control us, to put fear in us, to keep us from awakening to who we are, to keep us locked in a belief system that is not serving us. And I think that the as time goes on, I think, and we get more and more into the new age of Aquarius, I think that there's going to be a lot more people that are going to start investigating things and accepting ways of being and seeing that they never would have before. I went through that very iteration myself. I was an atheist my whole life, and now I have a completely different belief system. And I think it's happening to millions of people over the planet. I can't tell you how many people reach out to me and say, "Hey, I've had a near death experience," or "I had this happen to me and it completely changed my view," or "I had another being talk to me in the shower. I'm a medium and now I can talk to people that have passed over." Like, I just talked to so many people that have the most outrageous paranormal experiences happen to them, that to me they almost seem quite literally normal.
Mm,
Like, paranormal is kind of normal to me. And I think the more we start normalizing these things instead of making them the outlier, the better our society will be able to embrace who we really are.
I agree. And but when people say extraordinary, what they actually mean is extra ordinariness that we don't understand yet. It's all ordinary, really.
Yes. It is. It's all a part of who we are.
Yeah.
And it's why I do this show. I love talking about this shit. And you'll have to keep me posted, because I am interested in these crop circles, as far as, like, if they are sigils, kind of ritualistic, kind of being compelled to be birthed in this 3D plane. This is fascinating. I loved this discussion. I loved that I was able to do a podcast and go deep into conspiracy theory land. I'm super interested in the real nature of our reality. I'm very interested in how we really became as humans on this planet. I'm very interested in all things magical, mystical, metaphysical. I think that there's more truth that lies in those three words than there does in mainstream science or mainstream anything that we have been taught or programmed to believe. So I am on a journey of investigating and learning and really opening my mind to all things magical. And Dee, it was a pleasure to meet you and have you on the show. I'll have to keep up with you and see where your journeys take you, my friend.
Yeah, thanks very much for letting me speak. It's really, as I said, I'm not evangelical about it. I'm just trying to say to people, look, there's a bit more to it. Don't write hoaxes off. There's a bit more to it than you realise, and it could be really, really mysterious. That's what we think. So thank you.
Well, if the basic premise is it to wrap it all up in a little bow, from my understanding through the show and just having this conversation, when you're saying hoaxer, it's you're not even saying that you're trying to hoax people. You're saying that there's groups of people out there that are being compelled to make these circles that ultimately end up either coordinating with something else, highlighting, being super meaningful, powerful in a way that cannot be anything other than magical, mystical in itself. So even the hoaxer experiences is something mystical, magical happening that we can't quite understand.
100%.
Okay. I'm glad we got there. We
It
got
took an
there.
hour and a half.
Well,
Cool.
Dee,
Yeah,
thank you so much
yeah.
for
Keep in
coming
touch, Christy.
on.
Okay.
We will keep in touch. We'll keep getting to the bottom of this.
Yeah.
And if people want to get more information on this and learn about it, like, do you want me to put your Substack
Yeah, just
in
put the
in the
Substack
show
on.
notes?
It's free. I'm not asking for any money. And then every sort of week or so, I update with a new report that I've had from a crop circle maker. Generally stuff from the 90s or the 2000s. So they're old stories, but you do get the odd recent one. But yeah, so hopefully the accumulation of those stories will let you think, hold on, there's something else going on.
So much magic to be had for sure. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that is a wrap on this episode of Fate from Atheism to Enlightenment. Dee, you take care out
Yeah, and
there.
you. Take care, Christy.
Thanks very much.
Thank you. Bye.
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 And that is a wrap on this episode of Fate from Atheism to Enlightenment. What did you think about that one, folks? I found that to be an interesting episode. Citizen D or D, it's interesting that he's out there telling his story in a way that I personally, maybe because just to who I am, I think he should say it more outright. I feel like he dances around it a little bit instead of just saying like, hey, we're out there making these crop circles because there's something that lies within that is compelling us to do so. And yet every single time it turns out we do it, it ends up having some sort of other epic meaning in our lives or in the global consciousness or some sort of underlying meaning that nobody could have understood. Like, I would just start saying that. At the end of the day, all you can do is speak your truth. And if that's your truth, you can't really worry too much on how people feel about your own truth. You just have to take your own power back and say it loud and proud. So if there is a group of crop circle people out there that are doing it not to hoax people, not to create fear, but because it is a calling in a way that is not explainable within our normal scientific reasoning methods. I mean, that's a story. That's a story there for sure. I don't know if it is the biggest story that hit the world because I think there's tons. I mean, probably only because I do this show, but like I just had someone reach out to me and say, look, I saw you on YouTube. You seem like somebody I could trust. I had an out of body experience when I was 5 years old. They had an entity follow them home. They had poltergeist in their house for years. Another medium had to come in and remove the spirit, and now he has gifts and he has creative abilities that he didn't have before. Like, that's all magical stuff, man. Like, by the way, that episode probably will have already aired by the time I air this one. But I think, you know, Citizen D, I understand maybe the legalities of crop circling and being prosecuted by farmers or anything like that. I guess I understand that angle, but um, I do think he's far less comfortable with speaking the truth. I feel like I had to pull it out of him in a way. And he was kind of like saying this and that without just speaking like, look, this is what's going on. This is what I need people to know. It is something more than just making a crop circle. It is something energetic. It is something telepathic. It could be something extraterrestrial as far as like what is making us be pulled in this direction is a phenomenon in itself. Say that. So I wish D all the best. I hope he keeps telling his truth. I hope he starts telling more and more stories of this phenomenon that is leaving him with synchronicity in his life and a powerful knowing that there's more than what we think going on out there. And I want, I'm going to take a few minutes and just talk about the show in general. I am on my spiritual journey. I don't think I'm ever getting off my spiritual journey. I think once you're on, you're on. I think it evolves. I think you learn to grow. I think you get more and more expansive in your knowledge. And maybe one day I'll even get like some mediumship skills or something else that'll be super magical in my life. I'm going to watch it all unfold. In the meantime, what is the show? And I think the show is going to be more and more based on people having these phenomenon happening in their lives. I think it's going to be a lot of light workers out there trying to illuminate us to who we are. There's so many people out there that are starting to really step into the power of knowing our own abilities and are really starting to own who they are and helping people heal and helping people awaken to the power within. So I do want to start doing more of those stories. I want to also start talking more about the things that are happening in my own life that have been powerful. But I want the show to really highlight the magic of who we are. Like I think I want to do a whole episode on magic. So I am going to start mixing it up a little bit out there. I do want to continue to grow my audience. I want to expose them to different perspectives, different ideas about the nature of reality. And so if you're out there and you've been with me from the beginning, I really appreciate you sticking around. I am working hard to give you good shows that will create even more questions in your life and spur you on to put yourself on a path of discovery of who you are. But I'm on the journey, guys. I'm with you. It's interesting times, gang. It really is. It's very interesting out there. Keep rolling with me. If you want to follow the show, I am on Instagram at F.A.T.E podcast. And do me a favor, tell somebody about the show, rate the show, share the show, subscribe, download, do all the things. Alrighty, gang. Well, more to come, more to come. I hope you broaden your horizons in that one. I will put the Substack in the show notes. If you're interested in learning more about his phenomenon, I highly suggest you subscribe and get to know what's going on in Citizen D's life. I think it's called It Can't Be People, or It Can't Be the People, the Substack. I'll put it in the show notes. Check it out. We will see you next week on Fate, from atheism to enlightenment. And welcome to your fate, everyone. I'll see you next week. Bye.